Well, greetings. My name is Jill Green, and welcome to the Encouragement Zone. I recently posted a message on Facebook called Run Your Race. And I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I had no idea how many people would inbox me and would say, Jill, I needed this. Oh my goodness, I've struggled with this. This whole comparing myself to other people, wanting what other people have. And I realized now I need to run my own race. So I decided to follow the post up with this audio message. I was actually reflecting back on my own life at a time when I graduated from college. I graduated with a degree in telecommunications, and I had a focus on broadcast journalism. I was going to be Oprah Winfrey. I intended to be a reporter, a news anchor, and then have my own TV show. Well, life would have it, upon graduation, I changed my mind. I decided to go a different direction to the surprise of many family and friends. I had some who were supportive, but I had a lot of people that were disappointed in my decisions and even very critical. Some of my peers even made fun of me. And they would say, Jill, we're so surprised you're going in that direction. And it didn't make sense to a lot of people. I'd gone to school for all this time for broadcast journalism, and here I am doing something completely different. But I will say the lack of support that I received from some people did hurt my feelings. But I have to be honest, I admired my peers who had made a decision to study a subject in school, graduate, and get paid for that particular field. I admire that. I remember going home during holidays to visit my family, and I would run into some of my peers. And let me tell you, my peers were doing it. They had nice cars, they had nice salaries, their own apartment. I didn't have any of these things. I remember being invited to a get together at someone's home, and it was for young professionals. It seemed like everybody there was in medical school, had just passed the bar exam, was getting engaged, working for some big known company. It just seemed like everyone's life was moving forward except mine. I felt like I was sitting in a parked car. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever wondered, when will it be my turn? Have you ever said to yourself, when will my child be past this point? Have you ever said, when will my marriage get better? Right? Have you ever said, when is it my turn? I felt inadequate. I felt unsuccessful. I felt less than as I stood in the room at the party that night. I wanted to disappear. Everybody talked about what was going on with them and what was coming up for them, and I wanted to embellish my current situation because I just didn't feel like I had enough to even talk about. Now maybe that's never been you, maybe you've never felt that way before, but this is my story. But even in that moment, even during those times when I wasn't quite sure what my track was, I had this small voice speak to my spirit, and it said, keep moving forward. Keep going down this track. And I'm telling you, folks, the track did not make sense to a lot of people. It did not make sense completely, even to me. I didn't know why I was on this track, but what I did know is I was sowing seeds. And what I found out later is I was sowing seeds into my destiny. So this message is for somebody out there today where you're on a track. It's not popular. People don't understand it. But you have to just stay in that lane and keep going until you hit the finish line. That's what that spirit was saying to me. I found myself talking to my Uncle Charles one day and just sharing with him how disappointed I was and how embarrassed I was and how, frustrated I was that it just seemed like all my peers were doing better than me. It felt like everybody was passing me by. And, he looked at me and he smiled and he said, Jilly, you have to run your own race, doll. And then I began to think about those exact words, run your own race. And it took me back to a time when I used to run track and field. And my dad would come to my track meets and he would say, Jill, stop looking in the other people's lane. I had this habit of looking to the left to see who was next to me. And he would explain later that every time I took my eye off my finish line, it slowed me down. Every time I looked to see what somebody else was doing, it would distract me from winning. Now, that was a powerful message. Of course, I didn't have the full revelation of it then, but Daddy, I definitely have the full revelation of it now. So years later, life would have it that I would finally get a job in a field that would put me on my current career track. I began to admire the other professionals around me, their salaries, their levels of education and resources, their ability to network, their financial portfolios. I began to compare myself. And guess what happened? I started to get frustrated. I began to feel inadequate. I began to feel unsure. You know why? Because I was comparing myself and I was not running in my lane, running in my own race. Has it ever happened to you? Then I remembered what my uncle told me. Jill, run your own race. You see, there's nothing wrong with admiration or aspiration as long as it doesn't take you away from your destination. Allow others to inspire you and motivate you to be a better you, to be a faster you, but you still have to run your own race. So I have an acronym for you today. Run. The R stands for realize. Realize that God has a plan specifically customized for you. It has your name on it because he understands the silent tears that you've cried. He understands the heartbreaks and the headaches. He understands the disappointments with your family. He understands the letdown with your marriage. He understands the financial situations you find yourselves in. He understands, the disappointment in relationships. He understands. He understands. Realize that he has a plan just for you. But you have to run your own race. The U is for understand. Understand work is required. You see, oftentimes we find ourselves enamored with the results of other people. We become enamored with the outcome that we see. But what we don't see is the investment they make to get the outcome that we all get to see. We don't know the sleepless nights. We don't know the hurting heart. We don't know the sacrifice. We don't know the financial loss for the financial gain. We don't know it. All we see is the front cover of the magazine, and that's what we run for. Stop it. Understand work is required. That means they do the work and they get the return. You do the work and you get the return. Run your own race. And the N stands for never. Never compare, never give up, and never stop running your own race. It's so important that you keep your heart right, your work ethic tight, and you will get to the finish line. Another important ingredient is to celebrate other people's success. You may have a friend who's getting married, and that might be your dream. Celebrate. Stand up and clap. But guess what? What God has for you is for you, and your blessing is coming. You may have friends who bought a new home and you wanted to do the same thing. Celebrate for them, but you run your own race. You may know someone who you went to film school with who's now producing major movies in Hollywood. You might be still directing local plays in your community. Guess what? Stand up and celebrate because your season is coming. But you have to run your own race. So until the next time from the Encouragement Zone, I am Jill Green.